15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Ouch, ouch. Oh no. Ooh, there it is. In this live stream, I'm gonna talk about absolutely nothing other than you know who the fucking best is, motherfuckers. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You see that? You see that? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's that? What's that? Who's that guy? Uh-oh. 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 So, just to bring it back to Earth, um, talking about absolutely nothing. You will pass learning curve where you're at with casual energy support or whatever, right? You will pass that learning curve. You know, there's episodes in my old Instagram, that spiritual plug though, where I just, you know, go kind of quote unquote gung ho and do lives publicly, right? And you know, when you're starting to do lives publicly, I think some people could attest if I use that word correctly. Um, it's like it's slightly a different ball game from doing lives publicly. Da, 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 da. Lives doing it publicly. Uh-oh. Doing lives publicly and doing lives non-publicly, it's slightly a different ball game. And casually, like, you know, the mood for every live per the individual could be, you know, diversified and versatilized however it could be, right? Original, open source, or whatever. Shut the fuck up. And yeah, there's a part of me that wants to reflect on the video I did like a couple days ago saying number one undisputed, and that video was kind of choppy. I still like, so that like I still have that like that notion of data memory where I could kind of like refresh it, right? So, you know, sometimes you could just come on live and you know the people who don't mind, the people who mind don't matter, and the people who don't mind matter, right? The basic cliche literature fairy tale adages, if I use that word correctly, is they're applicable to like your life because people were living their life in reality common to us and different to us. You know, the people in the early 1900s when they were writing their poems and they're doing their art, they could have been more similar to us because they were living a human experience. Even the Greeks, you know, 3,000 years ago, like they wrote like some of the Greek philosophers, they wrote like detailed epic like reports, right? That we wouldn't necessarily know. Like they had like they have their own data infrastructure literally where they archived and logged their experiences of them going through wars, individuals reporting their war experience, and then them reporting their love dilemmas too, and then just life dilemmas. How like, you know, how even like the Lilith factor, and how the Lilith factor could be darkly revealing. That embarrassment factor, it's there, right? And like, you know, like that Lilith factor, that in one angle of the mystery dynamics, because in the last video I was trying to talk about the mystery dynamics. What are the mystery dynamics? Well, I would have to like kind of touch up that last video that was choppy, because I was talking about four things in that mystery dynamic video. I was talking about the existential conversation, the biblical esoteric Christianity conversation respectively, because like even though like obviously someone could be like, you're speaking of it in like a shallow way. Well, no shit, like that's where we're at collectively. That's where like the energy needs to start, right? You need to start like kind of like with something of like a baby step, obviously, right? But like people don't know the trail though, right? They don't know the path. They don't know what the path that someone has gone or the trail that someone has done, right? They don't know the, you know, the esoteric compounding effect, literally energetically. There's an esoteric compounding effect energetically, meaning that some type of spiritual tolerance and resilience is created from the pain that you endure, right? So the pain that you endure is creating some type of particular type of spiritual metamorphosis, most respectively, right? And that spiritual metamorphosis, most respectively, it's ongoingly with you, and it's quote unquote progressing and growing with you, and it's changed, and it's not what it was from the past, but it still was something from the past based on like a less amplified form. And now you're with that quote unquote base template code, original open source, of the DNA of when you were a fetus, and that fetus has genetic potential to grow to the human creation, the human divine beautiful creation, you know, the human being a beautiful creation of consciousness and intelligence, right? You know, all human beings have the potential to be both beautiful or both caught up in duality, right? So within this video about nothing, the mystery dynamics would kind of also apply in a new note of just like we can't really see sometimes the human caught up in its individual subjective karmic dilemma. It can't necessarily see a different angle. It has a unique blind spot, right? So within that unique blind spot, you could attribute that blind spot even on a casual esoteric level to maybe even Lilith, right? She's revealing some darkness, some deep darkness about you that you wouldn't think is there, and collectively we could casually inch towards it, and individually we can, because you know there's so many like past things I've done in the I'll just call it in the trail, original open source, mind you, with the understanding is people like, I don't think people should really judge. And here you go with another cliche, right? I don't think people should really judge a book by its cover, but on an energy level, right? Because your learning curve can be quote unquote equalized, right? And if it's not equalized and you still have a learning curve, then some type of quote unquote like life immaturity could be there, and that life immaturity could cause a false judgment, and that false judgment could create a false circumstance, right? So it's like karma and the subconscious and like the fates, they're leading us to do the things that we do based on how the soul kind of wants to, like, different angles of the soul, they want to get some type of evenness, whether that's constructive or deconstructive, right? Because you know the fairness and the orderliness of the cosmos is reflecting some type of evenness, but within the evenness, for the evenness to grow, it needs the polarity of the oddness. So the oddness is complementing the evenness, even though they could energetically war and oppose each other. The polarities that are energetically warring and opposing each other, in the bigger picture, they're helping each other's evolution, because they need each other to like kind of fill their blind spots on just an advanced intelligent level. And what do you call that? It's like the odds within the evens and the evens within the odds, original open source, right? And mind your learning curve and the new understanding, right? So the odds within the evens and the evens with the odds, they're complementing each other on a different paradoxical level, because what's even, if it's just even with no odds, then it's just its own plainness, and that evenness could like kind of like maybe cancel itself out, and maybe be not even is some type of non-existent, right? There's no dynamical like energetic friction fusion dynamic going on within a certain principle of energy polarity. And that principle of energy polarity, two polarities of opposing natures, but similar like source energy cores, they need each other to create some type of contrast within the reality itself, and the contrast within the reality itself is saying that the contrast of the polarities, it's like they're dynamically generating the reality on a different advanced metaphysical level, right? So that's all I really wanted to say. The mystery dynamics, the Lilith, I don't know if it's like buzzing out or whatever, but y'all know what it is. You know, I'm just intuitively like flowing with it, as you know, some teachers would like to like rhetoricalize and not and still be under a slick contract, no judgment. And it is what it is on some other shit, right? So I'm coming on this fucking thing just to like talk about nothing and just to say hi, you know? And y'all know what the deal is. So this was a mini. I'm not necessarily like, you know, trying to like be angsty with doing like long presentations, right? Because I'm just doing my own shit, right? Even though there's other points that could like always come back, right? So even in yesterday's video, like I could review yesterday's video, the quality hour presentation, and I could like, you know, and I could start from there, right? And as I start from there, like I'll like make it like there's points I've missed, right? And there's one point that I want, you know, the brain, it's interesting how the brain works, right? You know, it's interesting how you like you could speak something into existence, and you know that's a different type of deep esoteric accountability, right? You got to be careful and cautious what you're putting out there, because we don't know how particularly it will come back, but somehow it does come back, like within some type of esoteric mechanics of reality, of some type of quote unquote genuine mirror principle, right? A genuine mirror principle is taking accountability for what you're unconsciously or consciously bringing to the outside, and somehow a different universe aside from New Age, you know, inaccurate rhetoric teachers, you know, the universe will bring it back in its way, not the way that they're saying it, right? So so it's like I'm trying to like understand the accountability too, right? Because I'm like, you know, me saying it, like how does the brain work type of shit in a unique creative way. You know, I'll say it like, you know, say it like slickly in 2018, and the next thing you know, 2 weeks later, certain, I'm not going to name the university, a university will just do a random report on it, right? And you could, and in a miraculous way you could see the time of it respectively. But I don't really like, I'm trying to like surrender to a genuine universe, right? Because like, you know, we shouldn't really like, we shouldn't really particularly care what's out of our control, right? So yesterday's video, she's yesterday's video was just kind of like it kind of intuitively brushed up the video 2 days ago. But like I said, it's like, don't be too angsty within trying to overwork yourself as well, right? You can't like I don't know, it's like, you know, policymakers, it's ironic how there's not necessarily an intellectual publication and verbalization of how we have to be mindful not to overwork ourselves, right? But obviously every fucking policy and every organization is different. But I'm just saying, if you want quality work, then you have to take care of your workers and make sure they're taken care of on the bigger picture level, perhaps, and not overwork them, right? So it's like it's like we're influencing positive creative change beyond the protest stuff, and ironically the protest stuff could peep game. So it's just a weird fucking surface level human karmic shit that's going on, because like, what is the reality? I'm doing like, I already did that video, right? So there's one more point that wants to be squeezed out, and it was she's not necessarily the reminder of, you know, me doing a past episode of how the brain works, and like, and obviously, you know, a certain type of patience is required too, obviously, right? beneath, you know, the different opposition games that are happening, right? You know, because the opposition games, they could leave you waiting unwarrantedly, but God wants you to wait warrantedly, right? Respectively. So yeah, so yeah, I guess I was talking about. Oh, I guess I don't necessarily need to bring up this point, but like if we're under like someone's contract based on how we're attracted to them and following up on them and resonating with them, and we might not fully understand that contract, we got to really reread the contract respectively, because the human level contracts are way different from the incarnational contracts. We could be like in contract to like a whole different quote unquote spiritual plan that we have to ride or die for, right? Based on our spiritual growth. So there's a different no choice thing if we're under a certain planetary being primarily, even though we're under all of them because we're using their energies and influences respectively. We could be primarily under one, so we're ultimately under the guise and the taking caringness of that one, right? So it's a certain type of no choice, and I think that was the point I wanted to squeeze out. But like I said, when I have time, more points will come out, right? So you have the best life ever. I just want to like share gratitude with planet Earth and understanding for, you know, we've came a long way collectively as well. So I just want to share gratitude and understanding with this video. Thank you. You have an awesome life.